Hi friends, it's Deanna here today, and today we're talking about shirring. Shirring is a great way to make a woven fabric act like a stretch fabric. It can be a little intimidating, but it really isn't. It's super easy to do. It's just like sewing straight lines. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do it from beginning to end. Let's do it. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is wind our bobbin. So what we need is a regular bobbin for your sewing machine, and we need some elastic thread. Elastic thread is just a thin, stretchy thread that you can get at many different places. I got this one from Wawak. I really love Wawak and all the stuff that they offer. I'll add a link below of where that is, but it comes in like little rolls. So we're gonna go ahead and wind that, and you can actually do that on your sewing machine. Now, for shirring, the first thing you wanna do is you wanna finish off the edges of your fabric to make sure that it's not gonna fray on you. Now, for the top and the bottom, I'm just gonna go ahead and hem my top and my bottom on my fabric, and then for the sides, I'm gonna use either a zigzag stitch on my sewing machine or a serger to finish off those edges. So let me do that, and then I'm gonna show you how to shear. All right, now I've got a little bit of bad news about threading or winding your bobbin with your sewing machine. The only thing is, if you want to wind your bobbin with your sewing machine, which is a lot quicker, you have to have a speed button on your sewing machine. I have a speed button, so I can turn my speed all the way down, so when my bobbin is winding, it's gonna do it slower. If you do it too fast, it's not gonna work. It's just gonna overstretch the elastic. So the only way that you can thread this with a sewing machine is if you can have the speed adjusted. All right, so now that we've got my elastic thread here at the top, and we're gonna get ready to thread our bobbin. So we'll go through the little eyelet here and over here, so we're all ready. Okay, and then make sure that you loop that elastic through the little hole in your bobbin so that it doesn't come loose as you're trying to wind it. Okay, and then just push that over. Turn your dial all the way to the end, all the way to the slowest setting, and then you start winding. See how slow it's going? It's a very slow wind. If you do it any faster, it's gonna kind of mess it all up. So that's why you have to make sure. All right, and now our bobbin is wound and it's ready for us to use. And you can wind a few of them because it might take you more than one to do your project. All right, now don't worry if you don't have a speed dial on your machine, if you don't have a speed button on your machine, you can still do this. You just have to do it by hand. So we're going to still loop it through that little hole, and then we're just gonna start winding it around. And it's gonna take a little bit longer. You wanna give it a little bit of tension, but not a whole lot of stretch. And then you're just gonna wind it all the way. Keep it going all the way. Now I'm not gonna do this all the way because obviously I just did mine on the sewing machine, but this works just as well, winding it by hand. So that's what you would do to wind your bobbin if you don't have a speed button on your sewing machine. Now let's start to shear. All right, now we've got one last step before we head over to our machine, and that is to line our fabric. Now you don't have to do this, but it makes things a whole lot easier if you do. Sometimes I try to do it without lining, and it's fine, but you want to have straight lines. So lining it is the best way to do it. I use a water soluble marker, which means that when I wash it, this marker will disappear, and that's the best way to do it. And I'm going to draw lines starting at the hem line, a 1/2 inch up from each other. So they're gonna be a 1/2 inch increments. So we're just drawing lines, and then we are going to shear over those lines, which is basically just like sewing straight lines. All right, now that my lines are on there, we're gonna head to our machine. All right, now to set up our machine, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change your stitch length to a 4. And the reason why I'm using a different machine than when I did my bobbin is because the one that I did my bobbin with is my regular machine, and I messed up the bobbin casing area, so I cannot sew on it until I get it fixed. So I'm using my backup sewing machine, which works just fine. So I'm going to lengthen my stitch to the longest length. Mine on here is a 4, but I've done a 5 or whatever. And I'm going to up my tension to about a 7.5 or 8. So I'm just upping my tension here. At the top, we're using regular thread, and at the bottom, at the bobbin case, is where we're going to add our elastic thread. All right, now it is important that when you put your elastic thread in your bobbin casing, you make sure that it fits correctly and it is caught in the tension disc. So make sure you catch it in that tension disc right there. And then we're gonna pull it up with our thread. If you start shirring and if it's giving you problems and not looking good, it did not catch on that tension disc. So you need to go back and make sure that you catch it correctly. And now all that we've got to do is go to those lines that we created and start sewing like a straight stitch right over those lines. I feel like I need a new marker. That's really light. Now when I get to the end, I'm just gonna lift up my foot, get my needle up and pull out a little bit, and then just turn and go to the next line. So I'm not even going to cut that thread. I'm just going to the other side so that it keeps going. Look at how it's already kind of gathering the fabric. In the back, it looks straight and good, and in the front, it's looking good as well, so let's go. All right, we are almost done. Next is my favorite part of shirring. As you can see, you already have a pretty nice shirred section. It is stretchy, but now what we're going to do to make it even better is to give it some steam. And as you give it steam, that shirring starts to shrink. Look at it. I love that. Look at how good that looks. Look at that. That looks amazing. Now, most patterns, if you are just adding this like a shirred panel in the back and you do not want your fabric to flop down, you can go ahead through your allowance, through the gap of where your hem is, you would add a little piece of elastic through there, like a 1/4 inch elastic, to kind of hold it all together so it doesn't just flop out. It is up to you if you want to add that elastic on there, but other than that, we are finished. Look at how good that looks. So pretty. All right, I hope that tutorial was helpful. Now you can use this piece to do many things. You can add this to the back of a dress, which is what I'm going to be doing for the Gina dress pattern by Tiana Closet. You can use this to make a top, so you can make it longer. I would say 1.5 the width of whatever you want to make. I do have 2 tutorials on here, on one on how to make a dress, a self-drafted dress, and how to make a self-drafted top. So go check those out, but that's all there's to it. Comment, like, share, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time.